This is the Hawk Central Huddle, your weekly peek inside Iowa athletics. I'm Danny Lawhon here with Chad Leistico, and Chad, there's still a Noah Fant-sized elephant in the room. I know we've talked about it almost ad nauseum, and everybody probably wants to turn the page, but what are your kind of final thoughts on where the heck we are with this situation going into the last 2 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I think the main puzzlement is just what there's no disputing that TJ Hawkinson deserves to be on the field all the time, and he already is on the field all the time. But why not have Noah Fant out there too? I mean, I think that's really the main question, and that really hasn't been satisfactorily answered. I don't think there's any good reason why he, based on everything we know, there's not really a good reason for him not being on the field more. Mm-hmm. I would expect Iowa, I think, to use more double tight ends at Illinois this week. That's really the solution, to just keep him out there on the field a lot. Whatever the theories are, let's kind of move past it, I guess, at this point, but it's certainly worth monitoring. And I think the main thing is they're losing games while not going to Fant, losing close games, and that's why it's such an issue. And I think the coaching staff has to understand that.
As you mentioned, we've kind of spent each of these last 3 weeks going from, well, what can still be salvaged about this Iowa football season? But now sitting here at 6-4, I kind of feel like everybody's perception is, well, gosh, they can only further hurt themselves. Is that an accurate portrayal of where we're at for these last 2 weeks? Or if not, what is kind of the picture looking into the close of the season?
Yeah, I think I know some people claim to be kind of checked out on this Iowa season, but I still think the way this season is viewed and reviewed and thought of depends a lot what happens these next 2 weeks. Iowa wins these 2 games, let's say convincingly. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden you're like, okay, it was an 8-4 team, and the Hawkeyes lost 4 games they could have won in the fourth quarter. They were close. They were close. Let's see how they do in a bowl game. But if they lose one of these 2 games, Illinois, Nebraska, 2 of the worst defenses in the Big Ten. Now, Nebraska's not going to be an easy game, nor is this week. But I think one of these losses, if it happens, would put a kind of a stain on this season, and you'd be looking at 7-5 at best, when at one point you were 6-1.
So if you haven't checked out, and if this isn't a gimme this weekend against Illinois, I kind of think people still think that it might be. Yeah. What's the big key or two that either the Iowa offense or defense needs to do to make sure that they aren't sweating in the fourth quarter again?
Well, certainly both sides of the ball have to come through, because Illinois actually has a really good running game. They're 8th in the country in rushing yards. They're averaging an insane number per attempt. It's a lot like Maryland in my view, which that game went well for Iowa. Mm-hmm. But the offense, in my opinion, is just going to have to score points. I mean, this Illinois defense is dreadful. It's one of the worst in college football. If Iowa doesn't score this week, if Noah Fant doesn't get involved this week,
duck and cover.
A lot more questions. But, I think this is a week for the offense to get healthy and the defense to kind of survive.
You'll have to survive the next couple weeks of the season without us. We will not be back for a weekly video before Thanksgiving. So a happy early holiday from us, and we'll be back to wrap everything up at the end of November. Thanks as always for tuning in.